A very good morning, everyone. This is Moiz, a second year BTech student, and in today's video, we'll be looking at line coding. So, welcome to the tutorial. So, what we'll be looking at today, we'll be looking at the definition of line coding, we'll be looking at the types of line coding, and we'll be looking into the three major types of line coding that are unipolar, polar, and bipolar. So, what exactly is line coding? So, line coding, the data elements are being carried by the signal elements, and the number of data elements that are sent per second is known as bit rate. The signal that can be sent per second is known as baud rate or pulse rate. Now, line coding is a conversion of digital data into a digital signal. In line coding, senders convert sequence to bits or encoding into a digital signal, which then again converted into bits or decoded by the receiver. Now we'll look into the types of line coding. There are three major types of line coding, which are unipolar, polar, and bipolar. Now, unipolar line coding. In unipolar line coding, the positive scale is represented by 1 and the negative scale is indicated by 0, binary 0. For instance, we can see here in the line diagram, whenever the 1 is, it is positive from the scale, and wherever there is a 0, it is on the baseline. Now moving onwards to polar line coding. Polar line coding. In polar line coding, it is of two types: polar NRZ and polar RZ. Now to simplify this, polar NRZ, one is at the low level of the base, and 0 is at the high level. We can see 0 is above the base and 1 is below the base in polar RZ. In polar NRZ and in polar RZ, the 0 part is always at the base, whereas the positive part alternates between, whereas the signal 1 alternates between positive and negative. For instance, we can see here 0 is always at the base and 1 alternates once at positive side, the second time in the negative side, and then again the positive, negative, like that. Now we have polar Manchester and polar differential Manchester. In polar, it is very simple. Polar line coding schemes uses both positive and negative voltages level to represent binary values. Polar Manchester. In Polar Manchester, 0 is represented by the letter Z, whereas 1 is represented by the mirror image of Z. As clear as it can be. And in differential Manchester, it is exact same thing but the opposite. 1 is represented by Z and 0 is represented by the mirror image of the Z. Moving onwards, we have line coding on bipolar. Now there are two types of bipolar line coding, which are alternate mark inversion AMI, which is a neutral 0 voltage represents binary 0, whereas binary 1s are represented by alternative positive and negative voltages. In the line coding, we can see the 0 is always at the base and 1 alternates, sometimes positive and then negative, positive and then negative. And the second type is pseudo-ternary. Now in pseudo-ternary, binary 1 bit is encoded as a 0 voltage and the binary zeros are represented by alternating positive and negative voltages. Is the same thing. 1 is at the base and 0 alternates between positive and negative in pseudo-ternary bipolar line coding. I hope I'm clear to every one of you, and that is all from this lecture. Thank you.